Now, bringing you the very best in New Hampshire-based local music on IPMNation.com and 100.1 The Planet, this is Local Outbreak. Everybody, welcome to this week's Local Outbreak on IPM Nation and 100.1 The Planet. Matt Connarton from IPMNation.com here with you. And as always, we bring you New Hampshire-based music, original music from New Hampshire artists, a variety of genres. And I was thinking about it today, what I wanted to do for this week's show. Sometimes I like to do something a little bit different. You know, most weeks we feature music from a variety of different artists, or some weeks we'll have a specific interview with somebody. But I had something in mind for this week's show. So I wanted to do another of, and we've only done a couple of these, I call them time travel shows, where we go back in time and not like some sort of best of or retrospective type thing. I've never really wanted to do one of those necessarily, but sometimes it's interesting to just kind of go back and play something from an earlier time to kind of answer some questions that people have about the show. And here's what I mean. So the ones that we've done so far, and we've only done a couple of them within the last year, we did one where, because people ask me sometimes, Matt, do you have a favorite interview? Do you have a favorite guest who's been on Local Outbreak, a particular interview that you thought was really good or really entertaining or whatnot? And so, geez, I don't know. The time gets away from me. It might have been 6 months ago. It might have been longer. But I decided, you know what? I'm going to share with everybody my all-time favorite Local Outbreak. Let's dust that off and share it with everybody. And I'll do an intro. I'll explain why it was my favorite. And the interview that I chose was a hip-hop act named Airtight. And by the way, if you're looking for them online, or if you're looking for them in the Local Outbreak archive, Air is spelled H-E-I-R and tight is T-Y-T-E, Airtight. And they're a hip-hop act, but they've got kind of a comedy thing going. Well, not kind of. It's very much a comedy thing. And there are these funny characters, and it was a lot of fun. It was the most fun Local Outbreak ever. And I generally enjoy doing the show, but that one was particularly fun. So I answered that question. Okay, here's my favorite interview of all time on Local Outbreak. The other question people ask me sometimes is, Matt, how did you end up being the host of Local Outbreak? Because as some may know, and probably most don't realize, because Local Outbreak has been around it'll be 13 years in December, believe it or not. Local Outbreak has been around a long damn time, and we're so very grateful to 100.1 The Planet for continuing to support the show. But I'm not the original host of Local Outbreak. The original host is a very talented musician named Mike Laughlin. Also consider him a very good friend, and we used to work together. Mike's an amazing guy, but Mike was the original host. He's been in bands like Mantra and The Glorious Noise, and he often performs in the New Hampshire Lakes region, just doing a solo acoustic thing. So I suggest you check him out if you have a chance. But he was the original host. He wasn't able to commit to the schedule, really had a lot going on. So, but people ask me, Matt, what was your first time on Local Outbreak and how did you become the host? So, we did a time travel show answering that question. I played the interview where I was not a host, but I was a guest. I was in a band at the time called Chemical Distance. And Mike interviewed myself and Michael Haupley Pierce, also in Chemical Distance. And that was my first time being on Local Outbreak. And then from there, I was invited to become the host. Now, me being invited to become the host there were a couple of factors. One was it had a lot to do with that appearance as a guest. Apparently, I impressed Annie Biello, who was the program director at the time. And by the way, somebody I learned a tremendous amount from about how to do this. But I guess I impressed her, and she ended up asking me if I was interested in hosting the show, because Mike Laughlin couldn't make the commitment to do it every week because he had a lot of irons in the fire already, and I jumped at the chance. Now, that's one of the factors, is that I seem to do well as a guest, but there's something else that goes with that, and it relates to what I have for this particular time travel show that I'm going to share with you this week. So another question that I get asked occasionally is, don't worry, I'm going to tie all of this together. I know it's a lot, but another question that I get asked occasionally is, Matt, what's the strangest interview that you've done? Is there a particular artist, a particular band or solo musician you've had on that was so unique that you just thought, nothing's ever going to be this strange? This is just something really, really different and really, really unusual. And whenever anybody asks me that question, my first thought is Viper. I interviewed a gentleman. Now, his real name is Andrew Hillman, but he had this persona that he was doing music as called Viper. And he had a costume, and he was really scary looking, and it was really cool. It was really unique, very original, very different. And that was the most unique one that I've done. That was the strangest one I've done, and you're gonna hear it tonight. And trust me, it's very strange. And he's in character the whole time. But here's the thing: whenever I think about that, when I'm asked that question and I immediately think Viper, then when I think about it a little more, I realize, wait a minute. I never interviewed Viper on Local Outbreak. I interviewed Viper, but it wasn't Local Outbreak. And this leads us back to how I got the gig hosting Local Outbreak. See, this isn't the first radio show that I've hosted where I was interviewing local artists from New Hampshire. The first one was I was offered the opportunity to host a show called The Metal Classroom on an internet station called RageRockRadio.com. Don't look for it. It doesn't exist anymore. But Rage Rock Radio, that was the internet station. It was internet radio. That's not a term we use anymore, really, in 2022. We just call it streaming or podcasting. But at that time, the term internet radio was still in vogue, and it was just, if you're streaming online, you're not a radio station, but you're streaming audio, you're doing internet radio. That's what we called it back then. This is like late 2000s, right? So mid to late 2000s. So I think probably 2007, around there. So the way that I got the gig on the Metal Classroom was, and this will sound familiar if you know the Local Outbreak story, I was a guest on the show. I was playing in a band at the time called First Shove. I was a guest on the Metal Classroom. Apparently I impressed Hammer. His real name is Keith Flynn, but he's known in the music scene as Hammer, who was running Rage Rock Radio. And I was invited to be the host. The host that they had at the time couldn't commit, wasn't planning to stick around. So that's how I became the host of the Metal Classroom. And on the Metal Classroom, I would interview metal bands from New Hampshire. Well, did that for a while, and eventually Hammer came to me and said, Matt, I want to end the Metal Classroom, and I want you to host a new show called The Hidden Track. And the reason he wanted to change the name or do a new show, however you want to think about it, is because Hammer he didn't want to be locked into just doing a show where I interview artists that are quote unquote metal. And I say quote unquote because the term metal means different things to different people. What is metal versus what is just hard rock, heavy rock. So he said, I want to do, I want to be able to branch out of that a little bit and do other kinds of rock. So if we have sort of a, if we have a band on that sounds a lot like Nickelback, for example, it's a little odd. And at that time, a lot of bands were sounding like Nickelback, let's be honest. It's a little odd to do that on a show called The Metal Classroom, but he felt that The Metal Classroom was limiting. So he said, and he came up with a great name. To this day, I think it's a great name, The Hidden Track. Because that was also an era when, you'd go and you'd buy a CD and there would be an extra song on it that wasn't included in the track listing, a hidden song or a hidden track, as it's known in the industry. So, started doing the hidden track. Remember when I said, the way that I got the local Outbreak gig, it wasn't just that I impressed the program director. I also had some experience. See, the hidden track is a direct precursor to local Outbreak. Had it not been for the hidden track, local Outbreak might not exist, or at least not with me hosting it. The hidden track never aired on 100.1 The Planet. It was strictly online. But, again, it led to local Outbreak. In fact, there's a whole series of early episodes of local Outbreak. Some of them were recorded on site at 100.1 The Planet, but there was a whole slew of them that were actually recorded at the Rage Rock Radio studios with using the same setup and the same, all the same studio configuration, same engineer, everything, for the hidden track. We just kind of transferred it over and rolled it up into local Outbreak, and Hammer from Rage Rock Radio was also participating in local Outbreak. So, in a very real way, the hidden track was a precursor. It evolved into local Outbreak. So that's how local Outbreak was born. That's the whole story. And I hope you don't mind the history lesson, but it just so happens when I interviewed Viper, who I said was the most unique interview, the strangest interview I've ever done, that actually happened on the hidden track. So I figured this would be a fun time travel show. We're going to answer the question for everybody, and you'll get it when you hear it, why it was the strangest interview I've ever done so far in terms of music, at least strangest I can think of. But it's kind of fun to go back and see, what was the embryo, the the early idea that ultimately begat local Outbreak. So we're going to go back and we're going to hear some hidden track from the Rage Rock Radio studio featuring my interview with Viper. And I can't remember, but I think Hammer from RageRockRadio.com, I think he might have had a mic in front of him too and asked a couple of questions, but I'm not sure. I haven't listened to this in a long time. Fortunately, I save everything. In fact, I save everything on a very specific website, IPMNation.com. So just so you know, not only can you find the entire local Outbreak archive there, you can find the entire archive for the hidden track there as well. Not to mention the Metal Classroom. It's all there. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? I'm going to share with you now. Here it is. I'm almost nervous. I haven't listened to this in so long. I'm probably terrible. I'm probably nowhere near the interviewer that I am now. And I was younger, so I'm sure by more than a decade, so I'm sure my voice is higher. But here it is, the hidden track featuring my interview with Viper.
I'm Viper. You're listening to RageRockRadio.com.
RageRockRadio.com presents The Hidden Track.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Hidden Track, the very first edition of The Hidden Track here on RageRockRadio.com. And basically we have a little bit of explaining to do. This is the show formerly known as The Metal Classroom. And we have decided to change the name because the format's changing a little bit. RageRockRadio.com, of course, is and always will be the heaviest place on the internet. But we're kind of expanding a little bit beyond just metal. Of course, different people have very different ideas of what metal is to begin with. But, we're including more hard rock, some industrial, just kind of expanding the parameters of what we're doing here because there's a lot of great music out in the New England rock scene that we want to be actively promoting and making sure that you, our loyal listeners, get to hear. So we don't want to be in a box. We don't want to be limited in what we do. And in fact, our very first guest on the Hidden Track, a gentleman who I'm going to be introducing to you in just a moment, he's, whether or not you want to call him metal, again, that's up to you because it's a very subjective term. But I'm really glad that you're all here for the inaugural edition of The Hidden Track here on RageRockRadio.com. And now, without further ado, I've always wanted to say that, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Viper.
Hello. How are you?
And now, first of all, I just want to be clear because I've heard you referred to as Viper, and I've heard you referred to as the Viper.
No, it's definitely just Viper.
Just Viper.
I don't want to be associated with the cars and the vibe or any like that starts with vibe. I don't want to be started with anything with the.
Sure, I understand because there are so many things that start with the.
Exactly.
And And I know that when I think of the Viper, I imagine breaking into someone's car and having some sort of snake attack me.
That's exactly where I took it from. Yes, that is exactly where I got it from. When I was a very young boy, I saw that commercial and I wanted to chick on it, so I took the name.
I don't even remember the chick. Wow.
The chick went to the car, got out of the car, turned her Viper on, and an assailant came to the car, tried to carjack it, and literally a holographic picture of a snake came out of the car and tried to bite him. I, of course, thought that was the car alarm, so I just let people know that that's what I wanted to be in 8th grade.
In 8th grade, but certainly not today.
Oh no, not today. Now my just looks like a viper snake.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I am duly impressed. This is Local Outbreak on 100.1 The Planet and IPM Nation. Matt Connarton from IPMNation.com here with you. And this week we are reliving. We're going way back in time, 2007-ish, I think, to the precursor of Local Outbreak. A show that I did called The Hidden Track, the very first episode of The Hidden Track, with the strangest musical interview that I've ever done with the mysterious Viper. Here's more. Tell me about the music. Tell me about the music of Viper.
Basically, my music is very industrial and low-toned and full of sweetness that you can put to your ear.
And maybe just care about.
I got to be honest with you. I didn't hear any sweetness in your music, that's for sure.
Oh, there's plenty of sweetness. Plenty.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I find your music dark and frightening.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Those are certainly compliments. I like dark and frightening music.
Yes. The dark... I'm trying to make people aware of that there are other things to be scared of than just politics.
Sure,
Yes.
absolutely. Now, tell me about the inspiration for your music, because it's my understanding that your music is inspired by a specific illness.
Yes, that was the because I don't have any albums out. I'll say it like this. That was the last demo album that I did, was about the Lyme disease. But definitely, if you haven't heard that, that's the first demo that I did. The second demo, or the second album that I'm doing, is definitely about religion. Definitely about people's beliefs.
Oh, so you've got away from the whole Lyme disease thing.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Wow. In a way, I'm disappointed to hear that. I thought you were going to continue your crusade until they found a cure.
No crusade. I just wanted to do something different, something that other people can yell at me about and religion is a good thing to talk about.
Now, what are your views on religion?
I hate it.
Okay.
I hate everything about it. I'm not saying that I'm against it or satanic or anything like that. I'm just saying that if you're going to believe in something, believe in a piece of shit. It's there, it's real, it's going to stink.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
Yes.
Most of us if not every other day.
I wanted to, yes, exactly. What is something that you can see, something you can feel, something you can touch, for some people you can taste? I believe in.
But we should encourage. We should mention to our listeners that we are not encouraging anyone to actually touch or to consume. In any way,
no! If you had a piece of a Kit Kat bar, and you eat it, it tastes the same.
Boy, that's true. Oh my goodness.
Oh yes. Yes. The first song that I've been working on has been a very sort of an ideological presentation of ideas, and basically it's about Christianity.
Okay. And what is the message of the song that you're referring to?
Actually, to be actually the opposite of what I'm trying to do is let people know that it's okay to believe in your beliefs. It's okay to do things that are against the rules, and one of them is possibly questioning Christianity.
Really?
And that's what that song is about, questioning it. I'm not satanic. I'm nowhere near satanic. I'm not evil. I don't pillage or anything like that, except my dog. But I definitely do things like just question things. I question everything.
You
everything.
pillage your dog?
Yes, my hot dog, Oscar Meyer.
Outstanding.
Yes.
Well, what's the name of I'm very intrigued now to hear this track you're talking about. What's it called?
It's called Is Anybody Christian? And it's just about, I know there's Christians out there. I know there's people who believe in God and buy Amy Grant CDs and shit like that. But basically, it's just for yourself. When you think about it, when you hear the song, do you believe in God? Do you believe in something? Or is it just a farce? I think it's a farce.
Well, so much for the Amy Grant interview I was trying to book.
Can I say farce?
You actually can. It's internet radio. You can say farce. You can say farcical. Ooh. Anyway, here it is. Let's hear it. Is Anybody Christian from Viper on RageRockRadio.com.
RageRockRadio.com.
American Metal Radio.
The heaviest place on the internet.
He wants you. He has a plan and a purpose for your life. And you know what? You may be 45, you may be 50, you may be 70, and you're thinking, well, it's just too late. It's never too late. Let him work out his plan in your life, but he won't do it against your will. You've got to be willing to say, I surrender.
Is anybody Christian? Is anybody Christian? Is anybody Christian? Is anybody Christian? No! 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 Is anybody Christian? Is anybody Christian? Is anybody Christian?
my thoughts and in my words, in what I have done and in what I have failed to do. And I ask Blessed Mary, ever Virgin.
This is Local Outbreak. Matt Connarton here with you from IPM Nation, and we are on 100.1 The Planet, and we went all the way back in time to pre-Local Outbreak times, the precursor to Local Outbreak, which was a show called The Hidden Track, as we revisit the strangest interview with a musician that I've ever done. Plus, it's kind of fun to hear the original show that ultimately I sort of led to, perhaps indirectly, but led to Local Outbreak, The Hidden Track, which was a show that I did online. And let's get to the next part of this. Here's more of my interview with Viper. That was Is Anybody Christian from Viper, here on the inaugural edition of The Hidden Track on RageRockRadio.com. So, Viper, I want to ask you about another song I heard of yours when you were actually a guest on the Give It a Name show.
Yes.
With the captain on
Yes, I was.
IPMNation.com.
Yes.
And we heard a song of yours called...
Yes, one of my more sexually explicit songs. I make no hesitation that I love and great.
Yes, yes. The song was actually extremely offensive, which is what I liked about it.
Right.
And is that a running theme in a lot of your tunes, or are a lot of your songs about vagina? Do you have anything about breasts or
No, I
asses or
just
anything?
it's just
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's a good place to hang out.
Absolutely.
So
Excellent.
I love it.
So your new series of songs, a lot of them are about religion?
Definitely
What-
about religion.
What other subjects interest you as far as what you plan to write about in the future? Because you seem to get into themes, is that correct? You'll
Yeah,
get
I'm
into
definitely. I just, there has to be something there that I can write about. You know, I can't, go out in the street and see an old woman walking her dog and be like, oh, it's going to be something I want to write about.
Sure.
It has to be an old woman with a dog, and she has to have like a limp, or she's dying of AIDS, and the dog has one ear, or something like that. I mean, it's just, it's inspirational stuff.
That's the stuff
Yes.
of which lyrical gold
Yes.
is made.
Yes. And lyrics is the one area that I have the most problem with. So
Really?
yeah, definitely. I'm more of the music guy.
Uh-huh.
Lyrics are definitely very hard for me.
Now, you do everything yourself, correct?
Yes, I
You
do.
play everything yourself.
Yep.
And even when you play live, you do everything yourself. Is that correct?
That's right. That's correct. I'm actually in the process right now of getting somebody else to maybe do some other things. So because when I do live stuff, when I go back to the keyboards and stuff and the drum machine, it takes away from the performance when I'm performing.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have somebody maybe back there doing what I would normally do, or have their own ideas, and just expand.
Sure.
It's all about keep going. It's all about it.
And there's some level of improvisation, isn't there, when you're live?
Oh, definitely. People go to see a show, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make a show that people are like, this is awesome. Yeah, I don't get it, or I don't understand the lyrics all the time, but it's a show, and I'm having a good time.
Right.
That's what it's all about. So,
What is a Viper show like? Like, what happens visually?
there's there's snuff films. I have snuff films that are going on when I'm performing. I have the smoke. The smoke that I have going is to actually an element that gives me that much more darker feel. So, I rely on prop heavy too as well. The projectors and the lights and the smoke.
Sure.
So, and make it a recurring theme. Of something that's going on. It never stops.
Right. Do you tour around a lot, or?
No, I just pretty much hang out in my pink cave, just do their writing, and my friends will come by, and like two of my friends will come by. I only have two friends, and they'll come by, and I'll do a little show in front of them, and they'll like it and laugh and have a good time and not pay. So it's worth it, It's like I said, it's a growing process.
Two friends. That sounds very lonely, Viper.
Yeah, I definitely like being alone. Alone is the way to go.
Are any of your songs about loneliness?
I have one song called Alone. It's more of a David Bowie ripoff.
Really?
So it's to the other end of the spectrum of where I'm at. Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alone.
Yes.
Now let me ask you this. I haven't seen you do this yet tonight, but in the past when I've seen you, you will often hit yourself quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah, I've controlled that. I'm on medication now.
Really?
My doctor said that if I end up going off my medication, I will continue doing it. But, you know, it causes a lot of questions. Where'd you get this bruise? Where'd you get that bruise?
Sure.
You know, what'd you do to your face? What'd you do to your eye? It's kind of embarrassing when you said I did it.
Right, of
myself.
course.
Yeah. It's not like suicide. I don't believe in suicide. I think suicide's a joke. You know, people who try to commit suicide or have done it are selfish losers. So don't do that. Don't kill yourself.
Right. Are any of your songs about suicide?
No, definitely not. I do not invoke or approve of suicide at all. If you're going to kill yourself, but if you're not, then don't even try it and stop wasting everybody's time telling them about, oh, I have problems. I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to cut myself. Just
Well, Viper, I notice a contradiction there. You say you don't approve of suicide or condone it.
No, I don't. I just, it's just something I don't think. Everybody goes through bad. Everybody has a bad time. Everybody has, things that they can't fix or they want to make better that they don't feel that they can. Everybody does that. Everybody has that problem. Other people have survived. Other people have tried to commit suicide and said, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. So, continue living. That's what I say. Continue living. We have to suffer with the deficit. So should you.
Or as REM would say, everybody hurts.
Everybody does hurt.
Sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And the other thing I've seen you do is, and I think you brought it with you, the mask.
Yeah, I did bring the mask with me. I thought I was going to be wearing it. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that it's an impulse thing.
Sure.
Most of the time, I just wear that for the stage. But who knows?
Sure. All right. Well, we got to wrap up, but I want to definitely hear another track.
Definitely.
What are we going to go out with here?
You're going to go out with Stop.
Stop? Oh, how appropriate.
Yep.
Very good.
Stop is about the menstrual cycle.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And if women would stop, I could do a lot more. Yeah, I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just saying you're going to use a lot of towels.
Right. Well, you have to be practical about these things. Yes, absolutely. Well, Viper, thank you very much for not only being our first guest on The Hidden Track, but for enlightening us on a variety of things.
Yes, thank you very much.
So that's great. From suicide to menstruation and all that. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for this week on The Hidden Track on RageRockRadio.com. We'll see you all next week. And to take us out, this is Stop from Viper.
RageRockRadio.com.
American Metal Radio.
The heaviest place on the internet.
I'm whole again.
Why? Bring me down! Bring me down! Someday, school bus, we're born to lie.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me on this week's local outbreak on IPM Nation and 100.1 The Planet. And that was kind of fun going back in time. Like I said, I wanted to present the strangest interview that I've ever done. So that answers that question. And it kind of gave you a a taste of, like I said, the precursor to Local Outbreak, an old show that I used to do, The Hidden Track, which then led to Local Outbreak. And if you missed that whole story, you'll just have to go back and listen to the beginning of the show where I explained it all. But next week we'll get back to current stuff, I promise. But this has been kind of fun, although I did have to do a lot of editing to that interview, which of course originally was only available online. Viper, also known as Andrew Hillman. Kind of a little bit of an addendum to that, though. Something that happened after the interview. Andrew and I actually started working together. He had an idea. He wanted to, and he hinted at it during the interview, that he wanted to add a second person to the project. Well, I really liked what he was doing, and not just the studio work that I thought was pretty interesting, and I like that sort of, I don't know, goth industrial vibe or whatever you want to call it. But I had actually seen him live. I had seen him perform live as Viper before we did the interview, and I was really into the whole live spectacle of it. So he had an idea. He wanted to bring in a second person and call the project Viper Casino, and which I really liked. And I ended up being the guy. I joined him in Viper I joined Viper, and we became Viper Casino. And it was a lot of fun, but we never really got it past that stage. You know, we had some rehearsals together, and it was going well. And I was enjoying the improvisational nature of it, because a lot of what we were doing was improvised. But he had a lot of other stuff going on at the time, and we just never quite got it off the ground. So before long, Viper just kind of faded away, and Viper Casino, as the duo that we were supposed to be, faded away, and that was that. He actually apologized to me a couple of years later. He sought me out and apologized. He felt like he had dropped the ball, but it's all good. He was just very busy, and I was very busy too, so it wasn't like, gee, now I don't have a band. I mean, I already had other bands going. This was just going to be another thing on top of it. But I was excited about the project until Chemical Distance came along. Viper Casino was the most unique thing I'd been involved in. But to close out this week's show, we're actually going to play, I don't have any other Viper music, but as Andrew Hillman, the real guy, he was in a band with Mike Laughlin, who I mentioned is the original host of Local Outbreak. They did a project together, and it might still be going, called The Glorious Noise. So I'm going to close out, I think it's very appropriate to close out this week's show with a project that Andrew Hillman, a.k.a. Viper, and Mike Laughlin and a couple of other fine musicians did together. So we're going to do that to close out, and I do want to remind you, of course, ipmnation.com/Local Outbreak for the full archive of all the Local Outbreak episodes going back. It'll be 13 years in December. And if you want to hear the unedited version with all the bleeps taken out of my original interview with Viper, go to ipmnation.com/hidden track. That was the name of the original show where I interviewed Viper. ipmnation.com/hidden track. And you will find all the interviews are listed alphabetically. We did 19 episodes of that show. And you will see Viper. Viper starts with a V, so he's near the bottom of the list because they are alphabetical right there on IPM Nation. And we're going to put it up on our YouTube channel as well, on the IPM Nation YouTube channel. But thank you all again so much. And without further ado, we will leave you with this. This is the band The Glorious Noise, featuring Andrew Hillman and Mike Laughlin. This is a great track. This is called Damage, to close out this week's Local Outbreak on IPM Nation and 100.1 The Planet.